Mr. Buriette. I'm Kane.
I'm Dan.
I know. I'm going to ask you quick questions about what music you like to listen to during your middle school years.
Okay.
That's okay with you?
And I wrote some notes down so that it'll be quicker and it'll be more smooth.
Sounds great. All right, question 1. What type of music did you like to listen to during your middle school years?
Well, when we were in middle school and our early high school years, we used to listen to a lot of classic rock and a lot of rock and roll,
Yeah.
which was really popular back then.
Could you maybe give me an example of one of these types of songs?
Songs or some of the bands?
Some of the bands would be even better, yeah.
We used to listen to a lot of bands that were a lot of rock and roll stuff. So we listened to a lot of stuff like Rush, Ted Nugent. My first album was Elton John. I saved my allowance for a long time so that I could get that album. We listened to The Doors, The Grateful Dead, AC/DC, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Allman Brothers. We listened to some more contemporary rock like Journey and Boston. And a lot of my friends back then, they were experimenting with their guitars and their instruments. So I used to hang around with a lot of musicians and hang around with a lot of people that were in local bands.
Very cool. All right, question 2. Was the music you liked a part of the decade era? 40s swing, 50s rock, 70s disco, or 80s pop, so on and so forth? Was one of those a part of one of these decades?
Yeah, we listened to a lot of the 60s. It was classic rock back then. And we listened to a lot of the 80s rock too. It was pretty popular back then, like AC/DC, Boston. But a lot of the older stuff, a lot of the more psychedelic kind of rock and roll, when they had the people from the 50s had really sharpened their musical skills up. The 60s came around when they really perfected on the music, and they really learned how to use their instruments in different ways that they hadn't even thought of using back in the 50s. So in the 60s, the classic rock that we used to listen to was really interesting stuff because they were doing a lot of innovative and new things with instruments and with music and with different experimental types of sounds. It was a really interesting time for rock and roll. It was a really interesting time for music. And then in the 80s, I used to listen to a lot of 80s rock and roll. And it was more of a time of a lot of fun and just kind of getting pretty wild, right? So there were a lot of cool bands like AC/DC and Journey and Boston, like I said, that we really liked. And some of those classic musicians from the 60s were coming forward, and they were playing even in the 80s, and they were kind of changing their sound a little bit, and they were professionals at changing sound and making music so that it could fit the era. And there were some bands like Jefferson Airplane, which is my favorite band of all time, that had changed and morphed over the years, and they went from a psychedelic rock era to more of a 70s, 80s type of a sound. They even changed their name from Jefferson Airplane to Jefferson Starship, and then they moved to Starship. And that's a really interesting band to listen to because they really changed their sound over the years, and they really flowed with some of the feelings and some of the moods of those eras.
Very, very cool. All right, question 3. Did you attend any concerts by your favorite bands, artists, and do you still have any memorabilia from these?
Boy, did I attend a lot of concerts. I didn't attend a lot of concerts when I was in middle school, but in my high school years, I went to a lot of concerts.
Yeah.
And I lived in a really cool place where there were some really great concert venues. There was a lot of small clubs in the Providence area that we all used to go to. Even as underage kids, we were allowed to go in and listen to some of the bands. So some of the local bands were really, really cool, and we would go every week. And some of the bands that we'd go see at places like the Providence Civic Center or Worcester Centrum, which was in Worcester, Massachusetts, we used to go there pretty often to go see shows, and they would shoot like $11 to get into some of these incredible shows. And I used to go all the time. We went to hundreds of concerts. And I don't have too many of the memorabilia, too many of the things but we used to get t-shirts, and we would proudly wear our t-shirts to school the next day. And back when I was your age or a little bit older, you could pretty much tell who you were going to be friends with just by looking at their t-shirt, because different groups that would hang around together kind of tended to listen to the same type of music. So and we all wore concert T-shirts back then, so you kind of knew before you even knew the person if you were going to get along with them or if you weren't going to get along with them because of their T-shirt.
Yeah, very cool. All right, question 4. Were the lyrics important? Were the lyrics meaningful, structureful, experience-based, danceable?
All the music that we listened to is danceable. And I noticed that the 60s
Yeah.
era was not as a dance, it was not put down in there as a dance era. And some of the best dance music was from the 60s. So I don't know why it wasn't in there. It was a little unusual. But we used to listen to people like Jim Morrison, who's one of the greatest lyricists of all time, and Bob Dylan, of course.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan has put together 100 albums, and he is one of the greatest lyricists of all time. We used to hang around as friends, and we would put the records on the album, the album player, the record player, and we would try to figure out what he's talking about, and we would kick around philosophies and different ideas and things that he was trying to say, and ideas and how it would fit the mode of what we were going through in life and what life was going through in that particular period of time. It was really interesting stuff that you guys will probably never get a chance to really experience because you don't have that kind of music base these days. It's not the same. The music that we used to listen to, we used to find meaning in all this, in a lot of the songs. We used to find answers to questions that we had in life, in our everyday life, by listening to different music that was just on the radio. And it would bring us together because we would talk about some of the different lyrics that were in some of these songs that really were meaningful to us. So yeah, the lyrics to all these bands, they were all very meaningful. The 60s had their own feel. The 70s certainly had their own feel. We didn't listen to a lot of 70s music in the 80s because that was a disco era, and disco was really frowned upon. When America got out of the disco era, we really hated it. Nobody listened to disco, and you would get made fun of really hard if you were listening to disco. Now, I listen to a lot of disco. We listen to it at the house. The Bee Gees, one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
But you couldn't listen to that in the 80s, not as a teenager, because you get made fun of pretty severely. But even the music from the 80s, where a lot of their lyrics might not have seemed too deep, they really sculpted the mode of the day. In the 80s, and 80s music was all about having fun and going out there and meeting girls and staying out and having fun and just getting pretty crazy and not having so much responsibility with life, but being able to kind of like live our life.
Very cool. Yeah. All right, question 5. Who were some of your favorite artists in middle school? What did you enjoy most about their music? Did you attend any of their live performances?
Well, you already asked me that question, but there was a lot of artists that I really liked. I think Allman Brothers and Crosby, Stills and Nash were two that I didn't know or didn't tell you about. But Crosby, Stills and Nash, I saw them 20 times, and they were a great band. Allman Brothers, one of the best shows that I ever saw. Of all the hundreds of shows that I saw with the Allman Brothers, and they put on one of the best shows that I've ever seen in my life. That was at a place called Great Woods in Mansfield, Massachusetts. It was an outdoor concert. And I bet you I have seen Allman Brothers 10 times, 15 times. They were another great band. Bob Dylan, I bet you I saw Bob Dylan 25 times. I toured with him one year. We just jumped in my van. I had a Volkswagen microbus with a pop-top camper, and we traveled around with him around the whole country, and we saw him in different, not the whole country, I'm sorry, mostly the northeast corner of America, and we followed Dylan for, 2 or 3 weeks. And Grateful Dead, same thing. We would hop into my bus and we would do, 4, 5, 7, 8 shows in a tour, and we'd go home. And we'd do it all again. They had 2 different tours every year, the spring tour and the fall tour. And we could always be found on tour with those guys, somewhere local. Even if we didn't have tickets, we would just go and hang out, talk to the people, because we all had similar-minded structures in our life. Our life was structured in one particular way, and we all had a similar way of thinking, and we spent a lot of time with those bands and those people.
Yeah. All right. It's also been known that some musicians didn't actually write their own music. They actually borrowed it from somebody else and kind of remixed it or maybe did it their own way. Did your favorite artists write their own music, or did they?
My favorite artists, they wrote all their own music, but they did. It was the 60s, so they just switched and swapped, and they took some ideas, and they took some whole songs, and they moved them all around. And some guys did this, and some of them took that, and they did it their own way, and they put their own kind of flair to it. My guys, they all wrote their own stuff, but it was a lot of bands that were buying music and they had other people write their music for them.
All right. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you and take a little bit of your time. Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Father.
You're welcome. But there's a question there that you didn't ask.
I believe
There were a few
we're a little bit over time right now.
Oh, that's too bad. 'Cause I
I'm
had a
not
lot
wrong.
to tell.
I know.
About music
I'm
and
sorry. I
meeting
know.
David Crosby and what a boombox was, but maybe that'll be for part 2.
Perhaps.
All right.
You just click the red button again.
Mhm.